through hard times could recognize. Did you ever use cardboard instead of worn-out shoe soles? Or drink powdered milk mixed with water instead of fresh milk? Did you try to stay warm with kerosene heaters in one room while the rest of the house remained cold? Here are 10 signs that indicated a black family was struggling in the 1970s. Signs that everyone in the community was aware of, but which we handled quietly and with dignity, knowing that tomorrow the same understanding might be needed for our own family. Now let's look back on those days. 1. Cardboard replacing worn-out shoe sole. The distinctive sound of shoes with cardboard inserts told a story that needed no explanation. When holes wore through the soles of children's shoes faster than families could afford replacements, mothers became experts at cutting cardboard from cereal boxes into perfect sole-shaped pieces that fit inside to cover the gaps. This wasn't a one-time fix, but an ongoing maintenance project, with kids carrying spare cardboard pieces in their pockets because the material wore through quickly, especially on rainy days when moisture turned it to mush. The thing nobody tells you is that cardboard inserts created a shuffling walk as they shifted inside shoes, making it obvious to anyone paying attention that a child's family couldn't afford new footwear. Teachers recognized the sound and the gait, understanding without being told that the student came from a household where every dollar was already allocated before it was earned. What many overlook is the skill this survival strategy required, knowing which types of cardboard worked best, how to cut them precisely, and when to replace them before feet got wet or blistered. Black mothers taught their children these practical skills alongside lessons about pride and dignity, emphasizing that worn shoes with cardboard inserts, worn with held heads high, were nothing to be ashamed of. The cardboard kept feet protected from hot summer pavement and cold winter sidewalks, turning trash into essential survival gear through ingenuity that poverty demanded. For kids who grew up replacing cardboard in their shoes weekly, the experience taught lessons about resourcefulness that no classroom could provide. Today's throwaway culture makes this practice seem impossible, but for black families in the 1970s, it was simply practical problem solving that kept children's feet protected when new shoes weren't an option. Did your family use this trick, or did you have a different method for extending the life of worn-out shoes? 2. Extension cords running to neighbors' houses for electricity. The sight of an orange extension cord snaking across yards or through windows told everyone that the electric company had disconnected someone's power, but nobody mentioned it because everyone understood how easily it could happen. When the electricity bill went unpaid because rent and food took priority, black families faced darkness until they could scrape together reconnection fees, plus the overdue balance. Neighbors would quietly offer to run extension cords from their outlets, providing enough power for a single light bulb, maybe a small television, and occasionally a hot plate for cooking simple meals. The thing nobody tells you is that these arrangements were reciprocal and unspoken, with families helping each other through rotating crises without keeping score, because everyone knew their turn might come next month or next year. Kids remember doing homework by the dim light of a single bulb, powered by borrowed electricity, straining their eyes over textbooks while parents worked extra shifts trying to earn enough for reconnection. What many overlook is the danger these cords represented: overloaded circuits, frayed wiring exposed to weather and fire hazards that families accepted because the alternative was living in complete darkness. The extension cord became a physical manifestation of community interdependence, a literal connection between households that shared not just electricity, but mutual understanding of how precarious survival was when living paycheck to paycheck. For black communities in the 1970s, this practice demonstrated that neighbors took care of each other when systems failed them, creating safety nets from ordinary household items and shared compassion. The borrowed electricity couldn't power much, but it meant children could read at night, parents could see to cook meals, and families maintained some connection to the modern conveniences that poverty constantly threatened to strip away. How do you think neighbors decided who to help when their own finances were also tight? 3. 1 pair of good shoes, saved only for church and school. The ritual of changing out of good shoes the moment you walked through the door was so universal in struggling black households that kids developed lightning-fast shoe removal skills to protect the only decent footwear they owned. These good shoes, polished every Saturday night until they shined, had to last an entire school year while also looking presentable for Sunday church services, creating pressure to preserve them that children felt acutely. The thing nobody tells you is that mothers inspected these shoes constantly, catching any scuffs or loose stitching before they became serious problems, because replacing them mid-year was financially impossible. Kids learned to walk carefully in their good shoes, avoiding puddles and rough surfaces, taking them off immediately upon arriving home and switching to worn-out sneakers or going barefoot for playing outside. What many overlook is the emotional weight these shoes carried. They represented the family's investment in respectability and appearance, physical proof that despite poverty, parents cared enough to present their children properly. The contrast between the good shoes and the everyday footwear made the economic reality obvious to anyone who paid attention, but within the community, everyone understood and nobody judged. Teachers knew which students changed into worn shoes after school. Pastors recognized the kids whose polished Sunday shoes disappeared the moment church ended, and neighbors saw children running home barefoot to preserve shoe leather. For Black children in the 1970s, learning to care for good shoes taught lessons about responsibility and preservation that extended beyond footwear into broader life skills. The shoes themselves often weren't truly good. They were just the best the family could afford, but the care lavished on them elevated their status and extended their utility far beyond what their quality merited. What strategies did your family use to make shoes last longer than they were designed to? 4. Sharing bath water between multiple siblings. The protocol for bath night in struggling Black households was ironclad. Oldest child, first in the cleanest, hottest water, followed by each sibling in descending order of age until the youngest bathed in lukewarm, cloudy water that had already cleaned several bodies. This practice conserved both water and the fuel or electricity required to heat it, stretching limited resources with no moral judgment attached beyond the practical understanding that the system provided these items because families needed them. The plain packaging made the food's origin obvious, but in communities where most families received assistance at some point, that visibility didn't carry the stigma it might have elsewhere. For Black families in the 1970s, commodity foods were a crucial buffer against hunger, supplementing tight grocery budgets and ensuring that children had protein and dairy even when paychecks couldn't stretch far enough to cover everything. What commodity foods do you remember most fondly, and which ones were you glad to stop eating once your family's finances improved? 6. Powdered milk mixed with water instead of fresh milk. The slightly off taste and thin texture of reconstituted powdered milk immediately identified households where every grocery dollar mattered, though mothers became experts at disguising it through mixing ratios and strategic use in cooking rather than drinking straight. Fresh milk was expensive and spoiled quickly, but powdered milk cost a fraction of the price and stored indefinitely in the pantry, making it an economic choice that struggling families made repeatedly, despite knowing kids could taste the difference. The thing nobody tells you is that children developed a tolerance for powdered milk's distinctive flavor, eventually not noticing the difference or actually preferring it because it was simply what they knew as normal. Mothers would mix up batches in old milk containers, shaking vigorously to dissolve the powder and sometimes adding vanilla extract or sugar to improve the taste and make it more palatable for children who complained. What many overlook is that some families created hybrid mixtures, combining small amount of fresh milk with larger amounts of powdered to create a blend that tasted better than pure powdered while still stretching expensive fresh milk further. Powdered milk worked perfectly fine for cooking and baking, appearing in everything from cornbread to mashed potatoes without anyone noticing. But drinking it straight revealed its origins immediately. Schools served fresh milk with lunch, making the contrast stark for children who drank powdered at home. Another small reminder of their family's economic circumstances. For Black families managing tight budgets in the 1970s, powdered milk represented practical economics and the small sacrifices parents made to ensure children had calcium and nutrition even when fresh dairy wasn't affordable. Did you ever get used to powdered milk, or did you always notice the difference from fresh? 7. Kerosene heaters warming one room, while rest of house stayed cold. The distinctive smell of burning kerosene and the sight of families huddled in a single room during winter announced that central heating was either absent or too expensive to run, making portable heaters the only way to stay warm without bankrupting the household. Black families in older homes or rental properties often lacked central heating entirely, while those in better housing simply couldn't afford the utility bills that running heat throughout the house would generate. The thing nobody tells you is that kerosene heaters created a survival strategy where one room became the family's living space during cold months, with everyone gathering there for warmth, while the rest of the house remained frigid and unused. Kids learned to stay close to the heater without touching it, understanding that the glowing element was both salvation from freezing and a danger that required respect and distance. What many overlook is that mothers and grandmothers would wake throughout the night to check the heater's fuel level and ensure it was burning safely, sacrificing their own sleep to keep children warm and prevent fire hazards. The cost of kerosene, while cheaper than heating oil or electricity for a whole house, still strained budgets, making careful rationing necessary to make each tank last as long as possible. Families developed routines around the kerosene heater, homework around the warm room's table, evening activities confined to where the heat reached, early bedtimes under piles of blankets when the heat was turned down to conserve fuel. For Black families in the 1970s who couldn't afford modern heating systems or the fuel to run them, kerosene heaters were necessities that kept everyone alive through brutal winters while reminding them daily of their economic vulnerability. What memories do you have of gathering around kerosene heaters during winter, and how did your family ration the heat? 8. Generic brand. Everything filling kitchen shelves, walking into the pantry and seeing rows of products with plain white labels featuring simple black text that just said green beans or corn without any colorful packaging or brand name told the story of a household where grocery budgets were stretched to breaking points. Generic brands cost significantly less than name brands, and those savings accumulated across a full shopping cart, making the difference between eating and going hungry for families living paycheck to paycheck. The thing nobody tells you is that mothers became experts at seasoning and preparing generic ingredients so they tasted just as good as expensive brands, proving that cooking skill mattered more than packaging. Kids learned not to care about labels or logos, understanding that what mattered was having food on the table regardless of whether the can featured cartoon characters or plain text. What many overlook is that generic shopping was strategic intelligence, with mothers knowing exactly which generic products were identical to name brand and which required more effort to make palatable. The lack of marketing and fancy packaging on generic items was actually beneficial in some ways. No cartoon characters creating desire for specific brands, just straightforward identification of contents that got the job done. Teachers could sometimes tell which students came from generic brand households based on lunch items, but within Black communities, there was no shame attached because smart shopping that made money stretch further was respected. For families counting every penny at checkout, generic brands meant being able to buy more items overall, filling pantries more completely than would be possible buying name brands exclusively. The plain labels announced economic necessity, but also demonstrated practical wisdom about not wasting money on marketing and packaging that didn't improve the actual food. Did your family have specific generic products you preferred over name brands, or was it purely about the cost saving? 9. Wearing the same church outfit every single Sunday. The sight of children in the same dress, suit, or combination of shirt and pants every Sunday for an entire year marked families where clothing budgets couldn't accommodate multiple church outfits, though the impeccable care given to these garments demonstrated pride despite limited resources. Black families prioritized looking respectable at church, meaning that even when money was impossibly tight, children had at least one good outfit preserved specifically for Sunday services and sometimes school photos. The thing nobody tells you is that these single church outfits received more care and attention than entire wardrobes in wealthier households, with mothers washing, pressing, and mending them weekly to maintain appearance despite constant use. Kids learned to change out of their church clothes immediately after service ended, protecting them from any damage or stains that would be visible the following week. What many overlook is that children grew during the year, requiring constant adjustments, hems let down, seams let out, buttons moved, to keep outfits wearable until they could finally be replaced. When an outfit was truly outgrown beyond adjustment, it passed to younger siblings or cousins who could still wear it, extending its utility across multiple children over several years. Church communities understood which families struggled with clothing costs, and some had informal systems for sharing outgrown outfits among families with children of similar ages. For Black children in the 1970s, wearing the same church outfit every week taught lessons about caring for belongings and maintaining dignity regardless of circumstances. The single good outfit represented parents' determination to present their children properly in settings that mattered, even when everything else in their wardrobe was worn out or handed down. How did your family balance the need for church outfits with other clothing expenses, and what tricks were used to make single outfits last? 10. Neckbones and rice as the main dinner multiple nights weekly. The rich aroma of neck bones, simmering for hours, filled houses in struggling black neighborhoods multiple times each week, announcing that dinner would be the cheap cut of meat, transformed through skill and patience into something delicious enough to feed the whole family. Neck bones cost almost nothing because most shoppers overlooked them, but black cooks understood their potential when treated properly. Slow cooked until the meat fell off the bones, creating gravy that soaked into rice and turned a humble meal into something satisfying. The thing nobody tells you is that mothers and grandmothers took pride in their neck bone recipes, competing unofficially to create the most flavorful versions using onions, garlic, and seasonings that cost pennies but transformed the dish completely. A single pot of neck bones and rice could feed an entire family for dinner with leftovers for lunch the next day, making this meal an economical miracle that stretched minimal meat across maximum servings. What many overlook is that kids learned to eat around the bones expertly, extracting every bit of meat and sucking the marrow, making sure nothing edible went to waste. The repetition of this meal, sometimes 3 or 4 times weekly, marked households where protein was scarce and budgets were tight, but the quality of the cooking elevated it beyond poverty food into something genuinely enjoyable. For black families who ate neck bones and rice regularly during lean times, the dish triggers powerful sense memories decades later. The smell, the taste, and the feeling of being fed and cared for despite circumstances that made feeding everyone a challenge. The meal represented more than sustenance. It demonstrated how culinary skill and cultural knowledge could transform the cheapest ingredients into food that nourished both body and spirit. What inexpensive meals did your family prepare repeatedly, and how did cooking skill make poverty food taste special? These 10 signs marked black households struggling through the 1970s in ways that everyone within the community recognized, but handled with quiet dignity and mutual understanding. They weren't sources of shame because poverty was understood as circumstantial rather than moral failure, creating bonds of shared experience rather than judgment between families facing similar challenges. The cardboard in shoes, the borrowed electricity, the commodity cheese, the single church outfits, and the neck bones and rice told stories of resilience, creativity, and determination to maintain dignity despite economic hardship that society largely ignored. What made these signs bearable was the community response, neighbors helping without being asked, teachers understanding without mentioning it, and families supporting each other through the rotating crises that poverty creates. These survival strategies taught children lessons about resourcefulness, gratitude, and community that prosperity could never provide, creating adults who understood the value of helping others because they remembered when they needed help themselves. Looking back, these markers of struggle also represent something beautiful: the refusal to let poverty destroy family bonds, the creativity that turned limitations into solutions, and the dignity maintained despite circumstances designed to strip it away. The children who grew up in these households carry these memories not as sources of shame, but as badges of survival, proof that they and their families endured and eventually overcame circumstances that could have broken them. Which of these signs resonates most with your own memories? And what lessons did growing up with economic struggle teach you that still matter today?